to join right along. So this is Revolutionary Resume Back to Basics. My name is Erin A. Hart. I'm one of 2 career counselors here serving all graduate students in the Columbia College of Arts and Sciences. Our other career counselor, some of you might know through meetings with her, is Dr. Johnette Ruffner-Caesar. And so today's workshop is actually part 1 of a 2-part workshop called Revolutionary Resume, and Dr. Johnette Ruffner-Caesar is leading the next level version of this workshop coming up very soon. And so this workshop is recorded. You will receive all the slides and the recording. And along with that email after this workshop, I'll send you the date of the next level portion so you can join if that workshop is something you're interested in. This 2-part workshop is also a part of our larger career readiness workshop series. We offer workshops throughout the fall and spring semesters on a ton of awesome topics. So please feel free to keep checking your emails, check back on the Columbian College current student events website. And so you can feel free to join workshops on any of our other topics. Again, I am one of 2 career counselors here in the Columbian College. That's Dr. Johnette Ruffner-Caesar, and you have access to both of us. We both lead all of our workshops, and you can schedule an appointment with either one of us on Handshake. A little bit more about me. Again, my name is Erin A. Hart. I have my master's degree in higher education and student affairs. I'm also a Gallup certified Clifton Strengths coach. So if you're interested in learning more about what your unique strengths are and how to utilize them in the hiring process and also in the workplace, I'm that person for you. I also have experience working with recruiters and HR back when I worked on the employer side of career services. So I definitely know what employers are looking for. One of the reasons I'm so excited to lead this workshop is because one of my favorite things to do is help students figure out what careers they're truly interested in. And so learning about your resume and how to truly craft it and really filtering through all of your different experiences is actually a way to learn more about yourself. Your resume is just a snapshot of all of the unique experiences that you have. And so it's a really nice one-pager to show you and others where you've been, where you currently are, and where you want to go. And it tells you information about what gaps you want to fill. Before we get started on today's workshop, here are just a couple of resume resources that you have available to you. I am going to go quickly through some of these resources slides because we have a lot to cover today. But the one resource that I really want to point out is VMOC. That is an AI resume review platform that's offered through the Maine Center for Career Services here at GW. And so I recommend using VMOC if you have some formatting questions or just kind of want an AI overview of what your resume does well and what you could improve upon before you meet with either Dr. Ruffner-Caesar or myself in a one-on-one appointment to really dive deeper into your content. Again, this is a great resource for formatting, and it also scores your resume out of 100, so that's also really helpful. We also have the Vault Career Guides, and again, the opportunity to look at your resume with a career coach individually. In this session, you will understand the characteristics of a U.S. resume, when you need one, what to include. You'll learn formatting and bullet point do's and don'ts, plus how to beat applicant tracking systems. And you'll even receive a very quick cover letter crash course. This semester, we're adding a cover letter workshop called A Cover Letter is Like a Love Letter. That sounds silly, but it's a really great way to think about writing your cover letter. And so this is a really quick crash course, and we also encourage you to attend that workshop later. And I see a question, are these resources available for students or are staff and faculty able to use them as well? That's a great question. I believe that any of the resources are available to people who have a GW single sign-on. So you can feel free to try that out. And if you have any trouble, please email me. I'll put in the chat that our career services email is ccis_careers@gwu.edu. So any questions you have, you can always email us at our main email address. But thank you for your question. So moving right into our content for today, just a resume overview. This might be a refresher for many of you, but I hope you also learned something new. So what is a resume? A resume is a one-page summary of who you are as a professional. The reason why one page is a recommendation is because employers look at resumes for an average of 7.2 seconds. So 6 to 8 seconds is the average. That statistic I've never been a fan of. It's really hard for me to believe that employers are really taking that little time to read through a resume before offering a candidate an interview. But that's the statistic, and it is true time and time again. If you have more than 5 to 8 years of experience, you can go on to 2 pages if you feel that a one-page resume doesn't paint a complete picture of who you are as a professional. But again, try and stick to one page if you can. It's a snapshot of your most relevant skills and experience. It doesn't include everything that you've ever done. That's more like a CV or a master resume. I always recommend to students that you have a master resume with everything that you've done, so that way you can pick and choose the experiences that are most relevant to the employer for who you're targeting your resume. It's a place to demonstrate your organization and grammar skills. I have met recruiters in my past role who throw out a resume if they see one spelling error. There's really no excuse today with all of the tools that you have available to you, like AI. Grammarly is another great one. If you're writing your resume in Microsoft Word, it should underline it in red if you have a typo. So you really need to be diligent in proofreading your resume. And that's what a career coach is here for too. A resume is also a tool that might help push your application to the top of the pile. And what I mean by that is ATS systems, if they like or approve your resume, could put your resume first in the file folder of resumes that are provided to the recruiter or hiring manager who is filtering through resumes. When I worked in HR, what I used was Indeed for employers because we had candidates submit their applications on Indeed. And so Indeed for employers would look for those keywords and put the most relevant resumes first. And you can, and I'm going to tell you how to do it today, use keywords to make sure that your resume is higher up in the pile and it's not at the bottom. And why do you need one? This might be obvious. You all are here because you know that you need one. But your resume is expected and encouraged, of course, when you're submitting job and internship applications. It's the standard way that employers learn about you. But it's also expected in other areas. And one of those is at career fairs and professional networking events. At career fairs, it's always really impressive when you bring a black folder or a Padfolio with you and you have at least 10 copies of your printed resume available. You never know who you're going to meet, even if it's not a typical career fair, even if it's an on-site visit or another type of networking event. You never know who you're going to meet, and someone might want to learn more about you and your experience if they tell you about available roles at their organization. One that usually people don't know about is that it's helpful at in-person interviews. This is something that has always really impressed the people that I've interviewed for at different companies when I bring printed out copies of my resume for the number of interviewers who I know are going to be there in my interview. The reason why it's impressive is because it shows a level of consideration and respect for their time. You're going to be talking about all of the experience that you bring in that interview, and it's helpful for someone to have a printed out page of experience that you can reference. So in an interview, if you talk about, oh, I had this experience and I did this, this, and this, and here's why it's relevant to your organization, you can say, this information is all available on my resume in front of you in this section for them to reference later. It's helpful on your LinkedIn profile, although my recommendation for this would be to copy and paste the bullet points from your resume and add it to the experience section of your LinkedIn. The reason why is because it's better for search engine optimization. It makes your LinkedIn profile more searchable. And you can add a PDF of your resume to your profile. However, it's your job then to update this PDF file every time you get a new experience or want to change something. And that's a lot of work, and it's not as SEO friendly. So I recommend doing the first option. Now, many of you may have heard of a lot of different kinds of resumes. We have resumes, CVs, federal resumes, hybrid, functional resumes. There are a bunch of different types out there, but today's focus is on chronological resumes. And the reason why is because it's the easiest for employers to get information about you because of the order in which your experiences are presented. But chronological resume, it typically means ordering experience by most recent to least recent, but it also can mean most relevant to least relevant. And that's what I typically recommend to students. Employers, again, only look at a resume for 7.2 seconds. So it's helpful if the experience that makes you the best candidate for the role is the highest up on that piece of paper. Now, let's get into creating your document. I'm going to go step by step through how I would create my own resume if I were starting it from scratch. And I encourage you to pull up your resume next to you if you have it printed out and take notes with a pencil or a pen. Or if you have it like most people, unlike me, I would just pull it up in another window. And again, feel free to take notes or even make quick, small edits while we're talking together. Before I get into, each section of the resume, I want to start by saying and acknowledging the thought that many of us have, which is I can't get a job because I don't have experience, but because I don't have experience, I can't get a job. That's what the diagram is kind of showing on the left side of the screen. And I just want to debunk this. It's easy to get caught up in that endless cycle of feeling like I don't have experience because I can't get a job. And to get a job, I need the experience, right? But I want to let you all know that you do have experience. Experiences include everything from education, research, volunteer experience, clubs and organizations, leadership experience, your technical skills, certifications, honors, fellowships, and awards. These are all types of experience that you can talk about in your document. Experiences are not just paid. Some of the most underutilized experiences are service jobs. But many of us were a barista, maybe at Starbucks, or I worked at CVS when I was in high school and to get me through college and pay my tuition. And most people were really impressed by that because it showed that I had time management skills and balanced such a busy schedule, in addition to gaining those communication and customer service transferable skills. So I just want to let you know your resume does not have to be just paid experiences. And if you want to learn more about the different kinds of experience you can gain if paid work is not an option to you, again, please meet with a career counselor. So creating your document. To start, what I would do is I would open a blank Microsoft Word document or Google Doc. Don't use a template. The reason for this is because most templates, ATS systems just don't like them. And you don't want to take that risk because you could be getting rejected from positions before the person even looks at your resume. Choose one easy to read font. I prefer 11-point font or 12-point font. 11-point is usually what I recommend for it being easiest to read while also allowing you to use more text and space on the page. And some of the most ATS friendly fonts are Arial, Calibri, Cambria. That's what I use on my resume. Garamond, Times New Roman, Helvetica, Georgia. There are a bunch of different articles on Indeed and LinkedIn about which fonts ATS systems like if you don't like those options, but that's what I would go with. You can use anywhere from 0.5 to 1-inch margins. 0.5 I'm seeing is becoming more and more common because again, it allows you to add more information on just one page. 1-inch to 1.15-inch spacing between your text, and make sure that after you create this brand new blank Microsoft Word or Google Doc, you convert it to a PDF prior to submitting your application. Again, if you submit a Word or a Google Doc without converting it to a PDF, your text could be skewed when you submit it, and a PDF, again, ATS systems like it better. So first on your document, no matter who you are, is always going to be a header. Here is my header from my own resume, and then we have another example below. Now, I, of course, like the header on my resume, and the reason why is because my name is big and bolded. The same goes for the second version, but the second version is a little outdated because it includes the person's full address. Employers don't need to send mail to your house. They don't need to know where you live. They don't need to look up your zip code. So just include that city, state, or Washington, D.C. If you live in the district. Next, we have your email. Again, the reason why I like mine is because I'm using a personal Gmail account. Your GW email address will become expired or deactivated once you graduate, but you also are going to forget to check it. What I would hate for to happen is if you meet an employer in your final semester of graduate school at a fair, you really hit it off, but there are no positions that are really a good fit for you at the time. A couple months later, you made such a good impression that that employer wants to contact you about an open position, and you never hear about that opportunity because your email is deactivated. Those policies change all the time, or you just don't check because you've graduated. Include your phone number and include your LinkedIn URL. But if you decide to include your LinkedIn, of course, if you feel confident in it and you want to share, you want to make sure that it's customized and it's not a whole bunch of random characters that are just tacked onto your name at the end of the URL. And the way you do that is by visiting your LinkedIn profile. In the top right-hand corner, after you click on your profile, is this little box here on the left of the screen. Then you're going to go click on that little pencil icon, and you're going to click on it again. And then finally, you'll be down here on the right where you can just add in the, I'm not sure what it's called, but that little, the place where you would put your name on the end of the URL, add in your name. I don't have a common name. My last name is uncommon. But if you do have a common name like Miller, for example, you might have to add maybe one number or add a dash in between your first and last name, but that will still look better than a bunch of numbers and random characters that LinkedIn adds. After your header, you may have an objective or professional summary. I'll explain the difference between the two, but I want to share that this is optional, and in a lot of cases, I don't recommend it because it takes up valuable space and because you should all be submitting your resume with a cover letter. And on your cover letter, you can explain anything from your summary or objective, and you never want to be restating too many times or just regurgitating what's already on your resume. So what a summary is, it introduces you, your resume as you as a professional. It highlights your most relevant or impressive skills and experience. And it's helpful if you maybe have a 2-page resume. You have 10 years of experience in the field and you want to draw the employer's attention to a couple of very specific skills and experiences that you have. Then that can be helpful because it tells the employer what they should be looking for. An objective is helpful if you are changing careers or it's not immediately obvious how your experience is relevant to the position. It states your professional goals and why you're interested in the job and how they relate to the position. Again, you can see how these might be helpful for very specific circumstances, but both of these could be optional if you're adding a cover letter, which you all should be doing. If you choose to include a professional summary or an objective, next you would have your education section. If you don't include those sections, your education should be right at the top underneath your header. The reason why you want to have it at the top as opposed to at the bottom of your resume is because you're all here in graduate school for a reason. And if you're attending this session as an alum, then we can talk in a separate conversation. But your education is some of the most relevant experience you have, and it's extremely present, current, right now. So in your education section, it should have a couple of things. Your university and the location of your school, again in city, state format. It should have your expected graduation date. The first example here on the screen takes up a lot of space on the page, but what I like is that it says expected May 2021, and that makes it very clear when you're going to have this degree to the employer. You want to have the Columbian College underneath the university, and then you want to have your degree name. You can include relevant coursework, academic research, any honors and awards in this section if you want, but you can also include those in other places on your resume. The bottom example is what I see most of the time. It's more concise, and you also want to make sure that you have your undergraduate institution listed. I get a lot of questions about GPA. Some of you may be wondering about that. Since you're in your graduate school, you don't really need your undergraduate GPA anymore. typically, if you were to just have and graduate with your bachelor's degree, if you had above a 3.0, or maybe above a 3.5, you'd keep it on there. But since you're in graduate school, you don't need it. In grad school, your GPA is a little different. I would include your GPA if you have above a 3.6. But again, if you have questions about this, this is often an individual conversation, and so you can talk to a career counselor about this. Just a quick note about locations and dates. If you choose one way to format your resume, this formatting should be consistent throughout. Pretty soon we'll talk about experience. You can see that in the education section here, Washington, D.C. is on the left. Your education section is the only area where your location could be different than how it's formatted the rest of your resume. Your dates should always be on the right-hand side, and you'll see in the experience section that typically your location is also right aligned on the right-hand side of the page. Before we get into experience, does anyone have any questions about anything that I've talked about so far? You can unmute yourself or put a message in the chat. Okay, I don't see any questions yet, but at any time, feel free to unmute or put something in the chat. Now, we've already talked about what kinds of experiences can count and should be on your resume, but back to what you should include. Let's say you have some research, some leadership, some honors and awards, and you're trying to decide which you should include on your resume. The job description is your best friend. What I always tell my students who I coach is to take 3 job descriptions, save them as files on your computer because they might expire or they might change. But for the purpose of creating your resume, save these as files on your computer and see what they have in common as far as the qualifications that they're looking for in an applicant. Identify which experiences from your master resume are most relevant to the qualifications that they're looking for. And what's so funny is that Dr. Ruffner Caesar, she has a saying called, "You don't want your resume to be the kitchen sink with all of your dirty dishes and every experience that you've ever had on the page." It's really easy to think, well, all of these things could be relevant, or I need to show them everything that I've done to truly be valuable. And that's not true. Again, your resume is one page for a reason, to show them what's most important. For headings and organization, I've said multiple times now that you want to put your most relevant experience first. Categorize your experience then using specific headings. So let's say that in the job description, they're looking for someone with, I'm going to use research experience again. Let's see, and actually before I go on, we do have a question. If I have a graduate degree, I don't need to explain details about my undergraduate study. Instead, I only need to write relevant coursework and research experience in the graduate school. Am I right? So that could be true if all of your recent experience is the most relevant and is the most impressive to the employer. But if you have one paper that was published when you were an undergraduate that is really close to your specific research focus and your niche, you might want to keep it on there. Don't discount your undergraduate experience, and don't discount experiences from even 4 to 5 years ago that are really a great indicator of where you want to go with your career. Back to the question of where you've been, where you currently are, and where you see yourself going. I hope that answers your question. Let me know if it doesn't in the chat and we can come back to it. So back to headings and organization. So again, put your most relevant experience first. Let's say you have research experience, some honors and awards, and maybe some leadership experience. In the job description, they're looking for someone who has a research focus, and they're looking for some other maybe communication skills that your experiences could demonstrate in a lot of different ways. So what I would typically recommend is if you have that research experience, to title it Relevant Research Experience. The reason why is because the words relevant and experience are words that ATS systems eat up. They absolutely love it. So you want to use those in your headings if you can. And then you're using research. So that's going to stick out to the employer even more than relevant and experience because they've indicated they want someone with research. Now, let's say you have a really awesome class project that you did, a presentation and a paid work experience. And these are all relevant, but you don't want to give them just an individual section for each. You can just title that section relevant experience because you're still using those 2 words that ATS systems really like. And it's going to pop out to the employer because they say, oh, here's someone who has relevant experience. Great, let's read more about it. Again, you don't always need to separate paid work experience from other experience that you have. And one other thing to note is we'll talk about bullet points in a second, but you can use bullet points to describe research. You can use bullet points to describe class projects and volunteer experience the same way that you would use them to describe work experience. Now, regarding headings and organization, here is a slide with a whole bunch of different examples of headings that people have used. There are so many more options. And again, this is going to be really specific to you. Just because the heading that you want to use that you think is going to pop out to the employer isn't a common heading doesn't mean that you shouldn't use it. Now, I want to go over some general formatting guidelines. When you start putting your experience into your resume, it should look something like this. I want to point out that your text and even your text in your headings should all be the same font and all the same font size. The only difference up here is that they used all caps, which you can feel free to do. And I recommend separating it from the rest of your experience by bolding, maybe italicizing or underline, or a mix of 2 out of those 3. This person also italicized their role, which I also do on my own resume, and I think it also helps to separate the organization from the role. You'll notice that I used a lot of examples from the Trachtenberg Career Guide that is linked in these slides, which you'll receive in an email afterwards. But these are relevant to public policy positions. All the formatting guidelines still remain relevant to you in the Columbian College. Other things, when listing the experience, again, you want to include the name of the organization or the institution. So if it's a class project, you would include the course name. Let's see, you want to add your role. And you want to do the same for every experience. You can see that this person used the same formatting for both experiences under their professional experience section. Formatting also relates to how you list the dates. You can abbreviate and do JAN period for January to DEC period for December. But if you're going to write out the names of the dates or if you're going to abbreviate them, do the same for all. And the best way to describe your experience, especially in the US, and what's the standard, what's expected, is to describe it through bullet points. So here are some bullet points, do's and don'ts. To properly describe your experience and give the employer all the information and detail that they need, that typically requires 3 to 5 bullet points per experience. You might be wondering, if I have 4 or 5 experiences, how am I supposed to do that and keep it onto one page? Again, there are some things that we can do one-on-one. There may be some experiences where you could get away with 2, but that would require a coaching session. In general, 3 to 5 bullet points is what we recommend. Do use action words to begin your statements. We'll go over these too. Things like conducted, organized, led, planned, scheduled, researched, analyzed, synthesized. You get the gist. And you'll see the next do is do use past tense if you're no longer in the role. So if the date is over, if you are not in that role anymore, say organized. Use present tense if you're currently in the role. Organize. And so you also want to quantify your experience by using numbers. If I had a marketing assistant job and I worked on an Instagram campaign that increased sales and traffic to our website by 30%, that 30% number gives me credibility. So you want to add numbers wherever you can. If you worked in a team, How big was the team? What was your role in the team? If you supervised 2 interns, include how many? Oh, and you also want to maximize your white space. So what my pet peeve is when people have their bullet point and one word falls onto a second line of text, and then they have all that white space that they haven't used. Either use 1 full line of text or 2 full lines of text. Use keywords from the job description. Again, let's say you save those 3 PDFs of the job descriptions for the kinds of jobs that you're looking for. Are they looking for someone who can collaborate? Use the word collaborate to describe how you worked in a team in a past situation. Now, here's what you should not do. Again, don't let one word fall onto a second line of text. Don't be vague or general. Add detail. We'll talk more about this in a second. Don't use the same action word several times. You want to show that you're a well-rounded candidate. So organize and plan, 2 words for something that's pretty much the same, but I'd rather you do that than say organize twice. Don't fabricate or make anything up. Everything on your resume is fair game in an interview. A lot of times when students put their resume into ChatGPT knows that you want to quantify your experience, so they'll add fake percentage points or fake impacts or results into your bullet points. And it's your job to proofread and make sure that everything ChatGPT comes back at with you and your experience is truthful. What would be so embarrassing, and honestly what would instantly disqualify you from the job, is if they said, oh, I saw that you increased traffic to your website by 30%. Can you tell me about that? And how do you know that that is truly the percentage of people and the percent increase? That would be embarrassing, and it would be obvious that you don't know how to answer that with that false information. And I actually, one time in an interview, this is a true story from a recruiter, he told me that there was a delay in the person answering interview questions that were asked via Zoom. And that person, they found out, had found a way to program ChatGPT, or had an audio device that was recording the interviewer and then putting those words into ChatGPT and submitting them each time. And then the person would respond with the ChatGPT answer. Don't let that be you on your resume or in an interview. Don't copy the job description word for word. You want to still make sure that you're showing your experience is your own and that you're not just taking everything from the job description. Do not talk about yourself in the first person. So instead of saying, I planned this, I supervised this, just say planned, supervised. And the final thing is ATS systems they're screening resumes for people who use ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is a great tool, but not when other systems are now being programmed to filter out resumes who use it. So you got to be really careful and never copy and paste. If you're going to take ideas from ChatGPT, always type them in yourself into that blank document. Now, as promised, here are some extra action words. This screenshot example is from an article on themuse.com. The Muse is one of my favorite career advice websites. The same with the Balance Money. That's also a great website to use. So I believe this link is in the notes of this slide deck, but I'll make sure to include the link to the article that I referenced in our post-workshop email to you all. Now, I mentioned that there are a couple ways to make sure your bullet points cover all your bases. And what I recommend you do is use the SAR method. Some of you might have heard of this before. It stands for situation, action, and result. So for each experience, your bullet points should clearly tell the story of what you did, how you did it, and what the results or impacts were. Now, here's an example from my own resume where I used this model. Generated more than 2,300 clothing donations for the 2023 Career Closet event via extensive campus and community outreach, receiving recognition on Channel 7 News and WBZ Radio. So here, the situation or the context, kind of explaining what this was to the employer, was listing the Career Closet event at my last role. My action was that I generated X number of clothing donations. That's what I did, but I also explained how I did it via extensive campus and community outreach. If I wanted, I could even include another bullet point and talked about how I built relationships with local donation centers to get these donations for the event. And the result was that the TV news people, videographers came to the event, and there was a news story on this that was on TV. Now, I'm going to show another example too, but it doesn't have to be a big outcome like that every time. This is just an example. Your results could be maybe you led a professional development opportunity in a staff meeting, and the result was boosting company morale or building relationships at your organization. That is a perfect result. So another example, this one, I wish I knew more about responding to on-site disaster situations. And I wish this one had some quantified information, but it's still a good example. So they use the SAR method and split their bullet point into two. So the first one is responded to on-site disaster situations in the DC area, ranging from house fires to weather-related crises. Then the second one is interviewed clients, assessed needs, and completed casework to facilitate the claims process. So the situation, they're describing disaster situations in DC. Again, if I were the HR person, I wish I had a little more information because I know nothing about this. The action was that they interviewed, assessed, and completed. This is how they did what they did. And the result was that they facilitated the claims process. Okay. So if anyone has any questions about bullet points, feel free to put them in the chat. I will say that in the next level, part 2 version of this Revolutionary Resume workshop, Dr. Johnette Ruffner-Caesar is going to go over how to wordsmith your bullet points in detail. So that would be a great session for you to learn more about really awesome bullet point writing skills. So the last section would be a skills section if you have technical skills. I don't recommend putting soft skills on your resume. And the reason why is because if you say you're a leader, you're a communicator, let's see what else, you're good at planning. They have to take your word for it. They don't have any proof because it's not as easy to measure as something like knowing how to use Adobe Creative Cloud. So instead, what you want to do is if you are great at teamwork and leadership, you want to use words like collaborated, led in your bullet points and give examples to prove that you have those soft skills or talk about them in your cover letter. And if technical skills are really important to the position you're applying for, you can move this section up higher. You can put it under education. That's a really common spot that I see it fall under. Don't bother putting Microsoft Office Suite unless you're looking for ways to boost your experience, because it is expected these days. But here's an example of a skills section, screenshot on the screen. We have another question in the chat. Is there a length of time that professional experiences become irrelevant? 5 years, 8 years, 10 years? Typically with students, I say, if the experience was from high school, and let's say you're a 25-year-old pursuing your master's degree, I wouldn't include high school anymore. Maybe you could include your undergraduate experience. But if you're a seasoned professional and you have lots of experience over the entire course of your career, there are a lot of experiences that could be fair game. It depends on if this is something that you could talk about in detail in an interview. If you are kind of losing memory of what you did in that experience, I would not include it. Again, everything that you include is fair game if you're asked about it in an interview. But this is also a great question for a one-on-one appointment again. And something that I was going to mention later, but I'll mention it now, is that we have our Resume Madness event coming up on October 9th. And this is a time where instead of a 45-minute standard career coaching appointment, you can book a 15-minute quick question appointment all day long from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. with me or Dr. Ruffner-Caesar. So that's also a great time to ask these questions. I hope that was helpful. Again, my answer is always, if it's relevant to the position and paints a picture of who you are, then you can keep it on. We have another question. If you had a relevant internship that was abridged due to COVID-19, should that be included in your resume? If it was a really impressive internship that you were so proud to get. Let's say with the federal government, those can be difficult. Then what you can do is you can include the title of the internship, the organization, what your role title would have been, the location, and then in the date, put abridged due to COVID or canceled due to COVID, and then put in one bullet point, not 3 to 5, just put what you were hired to do, what it would have been for. So I hope that's helpful with that as well. But if it was a really impressive internship that was selective, I would hate for you to leave that off just because of COVID. Okay, one other question. In the education section, should high school information be included in your resume? If you're in graduate school, no. If you're getting your bachelor's degree and somehow you're an undergrad who happened to enter this workshop, if you are a second year student or later, high school should be gone. It should only be on there if you're a first year student in college. Okay. Lots of questions. I love answering these. Please, again, feel free to keep adding them in the chat or unmuting yourselves. Now, before we move on to a short cover letter crash course, I just want to again ask, does anyone have last questions on this content before we move on? Okay. All right, so this is going to be a very quick crash course because again, we added a new workshop this semester because there's definitely a need for this. You must submit a cover letter. That's what I'm here to tell you today. Don't waste all of the time you spent working on your resume just to not submit a cover letter. And the reason is because it shows you're serious about the position. You took the extra time to tailor this letter to the employer and the job. You're demonstrating your genuine interest in the organization. And there is nothing that employers want more than to see that you are really interested in the job, because today, with all the tools that we have, people are applying to so many more jobs than they did 10 to 15 years ago, because we have the ability of using AI to help us get these applications out faster. And employers can tell if you're just submitting an application to any job or if you're really, really focused on them. Your cover letter, it's your time to shine and explain why you're a great fit. Showcase your writing skills, highlight your most relevant experience, and explain any gaps in your resume. This is not a time for you to restate everything that you just did in your bullet points on your resume. It's to draw their attention to a couple of really important experiences you want to stick out to them, and then explicitly connect and spell out for them why you're talking about that experience. So let's say you take one bullet point, you want to highlight that and then say, I noticed in the job description, you're looking for someone with XYZ skill. Here's how this experience prepared me to do this job, and here's why this makes me the perfect candidate for you. Okay. One more question. Should I include my undergrad GPA on my resume if I don't yet have a grad school GPA? I'm in my first year of grad school. If your undergrad GPA was really impressive, if it was above a 3.5, you can go ahead and include it for sure. Okay. Just a couple other things. This is an intro to the presentation on October 2nd and October 17th. Those are our 2 cover letter workshops. A cover letter is like a love letter. And the reason why is because your content should kind of be divided into 3 parts. This could be 3 paragraphs. I also commonly see 4 or 5 paragraphs, but it should be really clear the transitions between these 3 parts. The first paragraph is why you love them. So you're going to introduce yourself, say I'm really eager to apply for this position, and here's why. You can, I don't want to overstep and give too much information that's going to be in the next workshop, but the first paragraph is why you love them. The second section is why they should love you, and this is your time to state 3 things that you really want to talk about from your resume and explicitly connect them back to the position. And then the third section should be why you would work well together, again including, thank you for your consideration. Here's why I think I would be a great part of your team. I look forward to hearing from you, restating your contact information, all of that. Again, use proper formatting. We'll talk about this in that workshop. Use the header from your resume and add an e-signature. So by what I mean by this is use Adobe if you know how to, and kind of write your signature, take a screenshot of your cursive signature and add that to sign your cover letter. There's also the link to the Trachtenberg cover letters guide. This does not go over love letter format, and I'm very passionate that you should be using love letter format to write your cover letter. So again, please attend the workshop. And that is everything that I have for you all today. We went over everything your resume needs to ensure that it meets the standards that employers are looking for. We quickly went over why you should be including a cover letter and how to start writing one. Just a couple other things. Again, this is part of our Career Readiness Workshop series. We are here to help you as you begin applying for jobs this semester. I have a couple more questions in the chat that I'm going to answer, but at this point, the rest of this session is your time to ask me questions. It's your time to just kind of take notes, take everything in. But again, we want to let you know that we are here to help. We're here to go over your experience individually. And I'm excited for you as you begin applying for internships, full-time jobs, whatever you plan to use your resume for. Okay, so to start answering some of these questions, should the resume have things like the GRE and GMAT scores? The answer is it depends. So again, that's going to be something that you would talk to us about in a one-on-one meeting. Thank you so much. This is very insightful. What should be the longest length of a resume? So a resume, again, is that a snapshot. The longest I would recommend is 2 pages. No more than that. Otherwise, you're getting into CV territory. CV is used for academic positions or non-academic research positions. And if they're asking for a CV specifically, then it definitely can be longer because you need that extra space to include all the other things that are included on a CV. But if they ask for a resume / CV, which I tend to see on job apps, if it's not a research position, and if it's not an academic position at a university, stick with a resume. This was super helpful. How to market yourself as someone applying for a job while in grad school who would like to start working while still in school. Okay, as someone applying for a job while in grad school, want to work part-time while you're still in school, as opposed to someone who's applying for roles to start once they graduate. So honestly, you're going to market yourself the same way. I think the only thing that could be different is depending on if you're applying for a full-time or a part-time role, you want to make sure that you indicate on your cover letter, I am available to work full-time because my grad work is at night, or my grad work is during the day. However, I'm available to work part-time between these hours. That's always helpful to clarify, just if you're worried about them wondering if you can really do the job and if you have enough time on your hands. But that's the only difference. Should I include my undergrad GPA even if I don't yet have a grad school GPA? I'm in my first year of grad school. So yes, you can if you want, especially if your undergrad GPA was above a 3.5. But again, that's up to you. You clearly got into GW, so that's impressive in itself. And you always want to be including a GW and your grad degree on your resume, even if you don't have a GPA yet. Okay, lots of questions. I am loving it. I really love how you all are participating in this discussion. Should scholarships for grad school be included in the education section? Absolutely. Especially if you have 1 or 2 scholarships, maybe some people include Dean's List. They graduated cum laude from their undergrad institution, whatever you want to add, that's often found in the education section. But if you are super impressive and you have a ton of scholarships and awards, especially from different sources, then you can just add honors and awards section somewhere else. You don't want the education section to take up too many lines of text before you get into experience, because again, your experience tends to be super important and really relevant to them. So you don't want half of your resume that page to be just your education section, if that makes sense. Okay, awesome. I'm so happy you all are finding this helpful. I'm also here to answer questions about career services at the Columbian College in general, and I can also try to answer questions about career services across the university. If any of you have questions about Handshake, again, this is your time. I don't just have to answer questions about resumes and cover letters. Thank you. Will you email out the slides? Yes. So on my to-do list, I'm going to upload the recording to our Vimeo site when we get the recording on the Zoom cloud. So you'll get the recording, you will get a PDF version of these slides, you will get some of the links that I mentioned. I mentioned that Muse article with the action verbs, and sometimes you can see the links on the slides. You'll just have to type them in yourself into the Google search bar. I'll also be in that email reminding you all to attend the next level portion of this workshop and reminding you all to attend the cover letter workshop, Resume Madness, some of our other upcoming events. Absolutely. You don't have to worry about that. You'll get the slides. Okay. Maybe you may or may not know this. How can international students be supported when it comes to working on campus? So we have been getting so many questions from international students looking to work on campus this semester. So you can look for positions on the Talent Management Student Employment page. So that's one way you can find positions. We can also help you work on your resume and cover letter when applying to on-campus positions, but I want to share that we are not affiliated or associated with the Student Employment Office in any way. I can't give them a word or whisper in their ear to give you a job. I don't have that kind of power, but I can help you apply to on-campus positions the way you would for any external position. The other thing you can do is work with the International Services Office, ISO, which you might know about. They have international student ambassadors who are trained in assisting international students with their job search, whether that's on or off campus. Okay, next question. I learned recently about going global on Handshake. Do you have any information on how to access it? So I will make a note to myself to include that link to Going Global when I send out all of this information. So I'm going to make a note of that right now and stop sharing my screen. Going global, I know it can be difficult to find. You will use your GW single sign-on to get in there. Okay, other questions? Now, something else that would be helpful, I know a lot of people said that this was a helpful session. Is this kind of session what you want to continue seeing from our office in the future? It sounds like yes, but if anyone has anything else to add, ways that we can improve it or things that we should continue to do, also happy to get that feedback now. Another question, I have an internship opportunity that begins soon, but I will assist a job internship fair prior to when the work experience starts. Should it still be included in the resume? Would it be good to create a future experience section? So it sounds like you might mean you're attending a job or internship prior to when the work experience starts. I'm curious to know what other experience you're looking for at this fair, or if you're just kind of looking to practice networking or just go see what opportunities are available to you. Let's see what else. Okay, I'm looking forward to the second resume workshop, especially the cover letter workshop. Great. So back to Lourdes, if that's how you pronounce your name, back to your question. I'm curious why you're attending that fair. And if you're attending the fair just to get more information, to practice networking, I don't think there's any harm in adding a future experience section. If you are applying for new positions, maybe that's something you talk to them about in person in an interview when you're talking about your availability. Maybe you mention it in a cover letter, but you don't want to throw them off by adding anything that maybe might communicate something you're not trying to show them. I think that's something you would talk about with me in an individual conversation. But again, if you're just, trying to put your name out there, network, there's no harm in including a future experience section. Okay. Yes, it would be more to see what opportunities are available. Perfect. Yeah, go ahead and include that. I'm sure they'll be really impressed to see it. Other questions? Okay. Well, if we have no other questions, thank you so much for joining. This really concludes our workshop. I'm so excited to hopefully see your names again in some of our other upcoming workshops and in one-on-one appointments. We're so happy that you're utilizing career services. I always tell people there's a statistic out there, even just utilizing career services at your university once greatly increases your chances of obtaining employment post-graduation. How does one set up an appointment to speak with a career counselor? Great question. The link was in the slides, which you will receive after this workshop when I email all of the people who registered and attended. Now, that is through Handshake. If you just Google search George Washington University Handshake, you should be taken to our Handshake page. I can't think of exactly what the link is right now, but you would just, again, create an account with your GWU single sign-on. You can also email that ccas_careers@gwu.edu email that I added in the slides. And so if you have any trouble scheduling an appointment, we can always set up one manually for you if you're a Columbian College student, if you email us and let us know what you're looking for. Thank you so much, everyone.